हेलो फ्रेंड्स। इंग्लिश लिटरेचर के आपके अपने यूट्यूब चैनल लिट ई सिटी में मैं सौरभ अग्रवाल एक और बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट वर्क के एनालिसिस के साथ आप सभी का वेलकम करता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस द लव सॉन्ग ऑफ एल्फ्रेड जे प्रूफो। Friends, you know very well importance of T.S. Eliot, or I should say the place of T.S. Eliot in the canon of modern poetry. देखिए, बहुत सारे ऐसे क्रिटिक्स हैं जो मान के चलते हैं the development of English poetry took a definite turn with the advent of T.S. Eliot on the poetic scene. इनकी जो पोइट्री थी इट मेड कंप्लीट ब्रेक फ्रॉम द ट्रेडिशनल पोइट्री। इनफैक्ट जब हम बात करते हैं बिगनिंग ऑफ 20th सेंचुरी की, देयर वर राइटर्स हु आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी मॉडर्न राइटर्स बाय सर्टेन क्राइटेरिया लाइक W.B. Yeats, लेकिन फिर भी फर्स्ट मेजर मॉडर्न वॉइस T.S. एलियट को ही माना जाता है। And this poem, in all of Eliot's poem, is the earliest one which became a quintessential Eliot poem. इस पोएम में वो सारे फीचर्स हैं दोस्तों जो एक टिपिकल एलियट पोएम के अंदर पाए जाते हैं। दैट इज यूज ऑफ कॉम्प्लेक्स डिवाइसेस, kind of intertextuality. There is certain type of presentation of modern themes like alienation, frustration, fragmented psyche, and also experimentation with form, diction, and different kind of poetic devices. तो चलिए ट्राई करते हैं इस पोएम को पीस मील करके स्टडी करने की, समझने की कि क्या था T.S. एलियट के पोएटिक माइंड में व्हेन ही wrote down, when he composed this wonderful example of modern alienated alone person. Uh, First of all, friends, let's talk about some general background to this particular poem. And as you can see, it was basically published in 1917 volume of poems, Prufrock and Other Observation. It was the first major volume of poems by T.S. Eliot, and it is in form of a dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue, all those who have studied literature in their graduation and post graduation courses, they know very well कि ड्रामेटिक मोनोलॉग वो पोएम होता है जिसके अंदर देर इज वन स्पीकर, दैट इज व्हाई इट इज मोनोलॉग, एंड स्पीकर प्रेजेंट्स we can say a kind of state of mind or action which has some dramatic elements in it. कुछ ऐसा नाटकीय उसके अंदर होता है. It can be it can have different type of forms. On one hand we have dramatic monologues of Robert Browning, which are kind of psychological studies. Then we have monologues by Tennyson and some other writers also. T.S. Eliot, in fact, he was great fan of Robert Browning, John Donne. इन poets को वो काफ़ी follow करते थे. And this is a poem which is almost on lines of psychological studies done by Robert Browning in his dramatic monologues. एक टिपिकल ब्राउनिंग के ड्रामेटिक मोनोलॉग की तरह जो सेंट्रल कैरेक्टर है, ही इज फेसिंग अ क्राइसिस इन हिज लाइफ. हाँ, ये बात सही है कि ब्राउनिंग के जो करेक्टर्स थे दे वर बेसिकली रेनेसा मैन, और उनके जो करेक्टर्स थे वो पोर्ट्रे करते थे वी कैन से ग्रेट ह्यूमन एम्बिशंस, डिजायर्स, अनफुलफिल्ड काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. लेकिन जो एलियट का सेंट्रल करेक्टर है वो एक मिडल एज्ड मैन है. ही इज नॉट समव्हाट वी कैन से इलस्ट्रियस मैन, और ऐसा कहें कि जिसका अपना कोई बड़ा पोटेंशियल हो जो फुलफिल नहीं हो पा रहा हो. इनफैक्ट ही इज क्वाइट एन एवरेज, रादर बिलो एवरेज मैन who is trying to experience something which he dares not to do. The setting and the theme is urban, which is hallmark of Eliot's poetry. He almost writes exclusively on urban themes, and it reveals the ugliness of modern civilization. The poem is neither a love song nor an outburst of the feeling of a lover for his beloved. There is an irony. There is an irony in the title. It is titled, though it is titled as love song, but it is obviously not a love song. Rather, it is an ironical pot shot on the genre of romantic lyric. The original title of the poem was Prufrock Among the Women. Now, this is also very significant because among the women means he is not going, or he is not destined for one particular woman or his beloved, but rather he is feeling very uncomfortable in this company. Uh, I will take help of this comic illustrated by Julian Peters. He is a well-known comic artist, and he has made this comic strip, and we will try to understand certain things by use of graphics. Okay, there is an epigraph. Now, in Eliot's poetry, epigraph always plays a very significant role. It is not just for, we can say, a decoration or just a formal introduction to the poem. It has devices which are later unfolded in the poem. Now, this epigraph, especially, please, those students who are vying for NAT, they must focus on these kind of things. This epigraph is spoken by Count Guido. He is a character in Dante's The Inferno, Canto number 27. Okay, and in this epigraph, which is basically at present written in Italian, and if we want to read it, translate it into English, it reads like, if I believed that my answer were to a person who should ever return to the world, this flame would stand without further movement. But since never one returns alive from this deep, I, if I hear true, I answer you without fear of infamy. Now, what he wants to say, he wants just want to say that he was basically imprisoned with a flame. और ऐसा दांते जब उनके पास जाते हैं और उनसे पूछते हैं why he is here in the hell, what he has done, तो काउंट गीडो कहते हैं कि ओके, ऑन द अर्थ आई कुड नॉट हैव आंसर्ड द क्वेश्चन, मैं जवाब नहीं देता बिकॉज इट वुड हैव ब्रॉट मच इनफेमी टू मी, लेकिन क्योंकि एक बार हेल में आने के बाद नोबडी एवर रिटर्न्स, तो मैं तुम्हें ये बता देता हूं बिकॉज देयर विल बी नो प्रॉब्लम, देयर विल बी नो एक्यूजेशंस एनीमोर। ये जो एपिग्राफ है दोस्तों, ये डेकोरेटिव नहीं है, ये फंक्शन का काम करता है। जिस तरह का हेल एक्चुअल में प्रेजेंट किया गया है, अ सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ साइकोलॉजिकल हेल इज प्रेजेंटेड, एंड दैट साइकोलॉजिकल हेल इज द माइंड ऑफ आवर प्रोटैगनिस्ट Alfred J. Prufrock. I would like to bring your attention to the title. If you look at the first part of the title, the love song, it creates a kind of anticipation among the minds of readers कि ये it is a very tender or typical romantic poetry. But look at the second part of the title, J. Alfred Prufrock, as if a business card is being read. It basically juxtaposes two opposite things. एक तरफ love song which is very subjective, very intimate kind of thing, and एक तरफ जो इसका किसका है, J. Alfred Prufrock. It sounds like someone ostentatious, something very bossy kind of person. ये juxtaposition लगातार हम देखेंगे। जैसे ये जो हमारा एपिग्राफ है, इसके अंदर काउंट गीडो है, वो ही इज बर्निंग इन द हेल, और इसी तरह से हमारे जो प्रोटैगनिस्ट प्रूफॉक है, ही इज आल्सो इन अ सॉर्ट ऑफ लिविंग हेल बिकॉज ही इज अ विक्टिम ऑफ indecision. Now, we start this celebrated poem with the celebrated line. It is often quoted, let us go then, you and I. And the question arises, who are these two, you and I? I is obviously the speaker, which is one of the prominent feature of a dramatic monologue, that it is always a character other than the poet. Dramatic monologue मान के चला जाता है because it is dramatic, that it is never spoken by the poet himself or herself. It is some fictitious character, and in this case it is Alfred J. Prufrock. Okay, then who is the second person, you? There are different kind of interpretations. Some critics consider that it is basically a friend. Some consider it to be the reader collectively, and most of them consider that it is basically the fragmented psyche of the protagonist. He is talking to himself because he is so, we can say, afraid of forwarding his thoughts, that he only talks to himself. So let us go then. Now this then once again is very important because it indicates, ये बताता है कि something has already been discussed or done or decided. Then means कि okay, they have come to one final decision, let us go. When the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient authorized upon a table. Now, it's a very unusual simile, almost like a conceit taken from a poem of John Donne, metaphysical kind of conceit, where the evening, which is again romantically very famous kind of image, evening is considered to be the tender time of the day. If you remember poems by um, William Blake is there, Collins, Shelley, they all have written directly or indirectly about the beauty of the evening. Now this evening is spread out against the sky, just like a patient etherized upon a table. Means evening does not have consciousness. Evening is helpless. She is like a patient, and the smell is that of ether, which was basically used to make a patient totally, totally up to the pain. He can't feel the pain if he was etherized. It was the practice, normal practice during that time. Evening is spread out against the sky, and this evening is also a kind of we can say metaphor for the protagonist himself. The protagonist is also feeling almost helpless against this table, which is his world, his universe. Let us go through certain half deserted streets. Certain, not he is not very clear about his destination, but he is also very clear that he has to go to a certain half deserted. These streets are not populated, these streets are not crowded, these are not empty, they are half deserted. Just like once again his state of mind, it is neither full of thoughts, it is not empty headed, he has some well formed thoughts. The muttering retreats. Mutter once again describe an action of speaking in which there is a kind of hesitation, frustration, anger, but never any positive thought. Retreat, resting place, where people go to rest because they don't have any other place to go and sleep for the night. These retreats are cheap hotels where they spend night paying by hours, or they may be kind of prostitution centers where they pay to have paid sex. Of restless nights in one night cheap hotels, the protagonist makes it clear which type of locality he is roaming into. It is one night cheap hotels. We all know that red light areas of a particular district. This place is something shady like that area in which our protagonist is at present or he is proposing to go. And sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Sawdust restaurants, sawdust is basically sprinkled on the floor so that it becomes easy to clean them, to wipe them of mud. And oyster shells was the cheapest food on the platter. All these four lines present a very, we can say, cheap kind of locality where the protagonist is thinking of going. It also indicates the kind of appointment he is working out. It also suggests the nature of his company that he keeps. Okay, streets that follow like a tedious argument. Once again, what a beautiful simile. Streets that follow, that move, that have way like a tedious argument of insidious intent. Now, we can feel argument, and even argument is of insidious intent. argument that has some malice, that has some kind of, we can say, evil kind of nature, and tedious because there is nothing positive or fruitful to say. Just like this argument is useless, but it goes on, goes on. Similarly, these streets which the protagonist has to roam, but which lead to nowhere, like an argument जो कहीं नहीं ले जाती, ठीक उसी तरह से इन गलियों में उसको भटकना है, to lead you to an overwhelming question. These streets take the protagonist to one final question, but still, oh, do not ask what is it. Just like the streets, just like a tedious argument, which always comes to a point where all those who debate, they say, oh no, we can't argue about this, let's argue about something else. Similarly, these streets, वो चाहे घूमकर कहीं से भी जाए, they all come to one end. An overwhelming question, एक ऐसा क्वेश्चन जिसके बारे में पॉइंट कहता है, नो 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 नो, आई कांट रिप्लाई इट, इसका जवाब तो मेरे पास नहीं है. Let us go and make our visit without giving the answer, without telling us the final intent, without giving us hint about his final destination or his actual intention. The protagonist just says, let's go and make our visit. You can see here these zigzag manner, these serpentine streets, they are like insidious intent argument. And you can also see overwhelming question, do not ask what is it. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Now we have reference to one of the greatest Renaissance figure of painting, Michelangelo. Now women in the room. Now isn't it seems rather, we can say, incongruous, बड़ा अजीब सा नहीं लगता है, the locality which is very shady and cheap, and women are talking about Michelangelo. It seems rather an out of place kind of thing. Actually, Eliot is poking fun, making fun of the typical tradition of that time society, where women have limited subjects to speak about if they have to put a front of civility. These subjects include high literature and we can say paintings, though they were not aware of the depth and we can say the technical excellence of these paintings, they were allowed to talk anything about them. Now starts a very good simile, a good comparison, good in the sense that Eliot is able to convey us kind of sterility in the atmosphere with this beautiful, beautiful simile. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes. Now, there is a kind of, we can say, metaphor, yellow fog. Yellow itself is color of cowardice and it is also color of, we can say, spleen. And fog once again is haziness in, we can say, where a person is not able to discern clearly, that is fog. So yellow fog, and one more thing, it also indicate about industrial pollution in the evening when it is not white, typical natural white fog, it is yellow fog that rubs its back. We instantly think of animal like cat, some feline creature that rubs its back upon the window panes. The yellow smoke, smoke once again is yellow. Smoke once again tells us about pollution. It also tells us about something not burning properly, that rubs its muzzle, the front part of the nose, on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening. The whole these lines are going into one way. They are talking of an animal who is basically trying to become active, and these actions are compared with that of fog. Lingered upon the pools that stand in drains. This particular creature like fog, it lingered, it stays upon the pools, and they are not natural lake like pools, they are stand in drains on the open roads. Let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys. Once again, a direct hint at the pollutants. चिमनीज से निकला हुआ सूट उनकी बैक के ऊपर let fall. They allow it to fall upon it and rest upon their back, slip by the terrace, and then it start to slipping from the terrace, the fog obviously, and made a sudden leap. Then it goes ahead, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And feeling the fog feels that it is just a October night of we can say a cold atmosphere. It once again curled around the house, एक house के चारों तरफ, and fell asleep, stays there. Let's try to imagine it, Julian Peters, that this is fog. It is rubbing its muzzle, then it lit the corners of the evening. Then there are pools which is basically over drained water, and then it is we can it is letting the suit falling upon its back. Then it slips from the terrace and finally make a sudden leap, and it curls around a house and goes to sleep. And indeed, there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street. There will be time. The famous lines from ancient, some old poems, that there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street. जो street के साथ slide करता है, rubbing its back upon the window panes. He repeats once again that he is rubbing its back. There will be time. There will be time. These particular lines, they remind us of a poem by Hesiod, who wrote about peasant works. To prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. Here we come face to face with one of the ironies of modern times, that we have to wear masks whenever we go into the public sphere. We are so hypocritical that we can't face them with our natural fears, anxieties, or desires. We have to wear masks of being civilized, these kind of things. We have to prepare always a face to meet the faces, other persons that you meet. There will be time to murder and create. A kind of oxymoron. It is both murder and create. They have to murder. They have to murder, or they have to kill the reputations in their talk, or they have to murder the inner desire, and to create false impressions, and to create some sort of gossip stories. So it's all about murder and create. And time for all the works and days of hand. Once again, Hesiod poems are is being alluded here. Time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a cushion on your plate. Eliot is actually referring to the practice of putting your visiting card on the table, on the basically a plate offered by the butler of some house. बटलर लोग जो होते थे वो टेबल लेकर सॉरी प्लेट लेकर जाते थे, और जो विजिटर होता था वो अपना कार्ड विजिटिंग कार्ड उसके ऊपर ड्रॉप कर देता था. बटलर इन्फॉर्म करते थे अपने मास्टर को, एंड देन इट वाज डिसाइडेड वेदर टू मीट द जेंटलमैन और not. So it's like lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions. This is the problem of the protagonist Prufrock, that he is not sure about moving ahead. He is besotted with dilemmas. He is not able to get clear headed in his mind about what to do next. There are 100 indecisions he faces always. We are very easily reminded of the great literary character Hamlet. He was basically the demons of indecisions always haunted him. Not only his father's ghost, but the ghost of indecisions also haunted him. Similarly, Prufrock, he is not Hamlet, he will tell us later, but it is time for yet 100 indecision. After all kind of deliberations, सारी चिंताओं चर्चाओं के बाद, he is still not sure what to do. For 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea, before he reaches the destination, before he reaches the lady he wants to meet and propose, there is still time for lot of visions and revisions. My friends, मैं एक यहाँ पर बात और बोलना चाहूँगा. Visions and revisions and 100 decisions. Isn't it all about writing poetry? And such type of poems which talk about these things are known as meta poetry or meta poems. They talk about the process of writing poem. Isn't it true also for the poet that whenever he is ready to ink down, to jot down, to pen down his thoughts, there is always something left to be desired. There is always an indecision in the mind of the poet, whether it is the perfect word at the perfect place. Isn't it true that there are 100 visions and revisions before giving the final shape to the poem, before taking of a toast and tea? This is basically my thoughts on this poem also, that Eliot is also referring to the art of poetry. I would appreciate if you people give your opinion regarding these lines. Maybe I am looking at something which is not there. Okay, friends, so this was the first part of this very highly acclaimed poem by T.S. Eliot. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any suggestion, kindly put it forward. Tell me how to make these lessons better and how to improve the quality. If you have your inputs, your own interpretation, and your take about the poem, I am very much eager that you share it with us. So keep watching and responding, my dear friends, till we meet in our next class. Okay, thank you, friends.